Just like they say, if you act happy, you'll get happy. If you smile, you'll be happier. Well, the same thing happened to me, but in reverse. The sadder I was, the sadder I got, to where I really became to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. This is what happened to this little girl who comes from a very advantaged situation. Her mom is a doctor, an MD doctor. She quoted her as a fancy doctor because her mom makes a lot of money as a doctor. What we're trying to do with this girl is we're trying to give her something so that she can have a meaningful life instead of just cutting down trees.
Welcome back to What Are You Made Of here on Fireside. It's your boy, the Unstoppable, Mike C-Roc. I'm in the house today with another great guest. I cannot wait to introduce you to Clint Arthur. However, before I do that, let me let you know that I'm very appreciative and thankful for your viewership, your listenership, and your support of all that the C-Roc experience community is all about with that one agency and everything else. You guys have been phenomenal, and I just want to thank you right now and express gratitude for your support. So let's get to the show. Clint is in the building. Clint got introduced to me by someone. I get pitched guests all the time, but when I saw his bio, I was like, yes, he's got to come on. Let's go. Because I vibed with him right off the bat with his bio. We had an introductory call, and he's just a cool cat. Wait till you get to hear his story. He's a Wharton Business School graduate, award-winning speaker and info marketer who appears frequently on all the major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, talk shows. He's been with Martha Stewart, Dr. Oz, Suzanne Summers, just to name a few. 5 U.S. presidents. Just all over the place. Look, all these major brands, Mercedes, NASDAQ, Porsche, Coca-Cola, the list goes on and on and on. And how he got to this point is what we're going to find out today. But he's also got 21 best-selling books, and his latest is Wisdom of the Men, which we're going to talk about today as well. So let's welcome Clint Arthur to the show. What's up, man?
Hey, my brother, it's great to be here. And
last time we talked, weren't you heading out of Mexico for something, or you were preparing for something?
I think I was going to Houston to hang out with Joel Osteen and do some interviews for my clients. It was an amazing experience. It was so great. Every time I see that guy, I love him more and more. I'm going to go back and do another event with him in November. This time I asked him, you're not going to believe what I said to Joel Osteen. You know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Multiple #1 New York Times best-selling books, mega church. Did you know that his mega church makes $31.5 million a week from its broadcast?
No.
$31.5 million a week from his broadcast. Basically, when you go to the church, you're basically an extra in a TV show.
Yeah.
9,000 people go there every week to worship with this man. And I said to him afterwards, because we connected, I said, Joel, when people say bad things about you, because a lot of people do, it makes me feel better about me. Because some people say bad things about me, not a lot, but some. And I'm just wondering, how do you deal with the haters? And he goes, not everybody agreed with Jesus. What a
Yep.
He's so smart.
So I hung out with him for a brief time in Cleveland. I was coming out of a steakhouse, and it was like this mall in downtown Cleveland, right next to, I believe, the one of the hotels there. And I saw it, and I saw this guy with hair, and I said, that dude looks like Joel Osteen. And damn if it wasn't. I was like, Joel, you know when you see somebody you think you know and you holler their name to see if they look? It was one of those things. So we got to hang out and talk for a while. But yeah, amazing dude. And he's kind of just like me. When you see me in person, you're like, you're a lot shorter than I thought you were. So,
I guess. I don't know. His stature is so big in my eyes that. Did you get a picture with him?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit taller than me, but. So anyway, no, it's not the physical stature of someone, it's the being. But I just get that all the time, Clint. When people see me, they think, because same thing with Joel, like the presence and the beingness is so big that when you see the physical, you're like, oh, I thought you were taller. So anyway, we start this show the same way every time, and that's finding the ingredients of our guests. And that's with the question, what are you made of?
I am made of creativity. I am made with a burning desire to have more impact, influence, and income, and to help my friends have more impact, influence, and income in the world. Above all, I am a creator and I love collaborating with people to create stuff. And really, everything I do in my life is collaborating, either creating on my own or collaborating with other creators to make amazing things. See, people, what do I create with people? I create marketing. And people don't understand what marketing is. Today, marketing is what they call content. And the best content is entertainment content, content that just entertains people because really people don't care about anything else. They just want to hear stories. Like, we were just telling stories about Joel Osteen. And that's a great way to start this podcast because that's all people really want is they want to hear stories. And, I love creating my own stories, writing, making videos. And I also love creating stories or videos with clients. Like, for example, I got this mother and her daughter. The mother's been a client for a long time. She's an MD doctor in South Carolina, and she's becoming the biggest doctor in her city with my help. And the daughter, when she was 13, 6 years ago, tried to kill herself. And you would think a doctor would know the signs. But the first line of her TV segment that she's going to be pitching at my Celebrity Launchpad TV promotion seminar in July is, your kid may be suicidal and you may not even know it. I'm an MD doctor, and my 13-year-old daughter had to come into me crying with cuts all over her stomach saying, "Mommy, I don't want to live anymore." And I had no idea. I couldn't see the signs. And together, they wrote a book, putting her side of it and the little girl's side of it, which were, like she could only see as far as when the cop put the girl in the back of the squad car wearing a straitjacket and then they drove off. She didn't know what happened between that moment when the girl left and 2 hours later when they checked her into the insane asylum. And then she went down to the insane asylum to give the girl clothes and they wouldn't let her see her. They said, "Oh no, it's Wednesday, but visiting hours aren't till Sunday." See? So she didn't know anything that happened in between when the girl got in the cop car and Sunday when she saw her on visiting hour. And I had them write each of their stories about what happened on their own and combine it into one book. And I just edited their book for them. And it's really exciting and fun. And I was talking to my doctor client, Amy, last night. Their book is called "Why Can't She See Me?" Because that's what the girl was thinking. The girl was looking at the back of the cop car and she saw her mother on the phone. The mother is like freaking out. How come, like, what am I going to do? I got to make plans for my little kids to get picked up after school. How come I can't go with her? All this stuff. And the little girl's in the back of the car saying, "How come she can't see me?" That's the title of their book. So I love collaborating with clients to make marketing and that book. What is that book about? What is that book really about? So they write this book about the experiences that they had with the 13-year-old girl's suicide 6 years ago, or attempted suicide. But why do they do that? They do that, number one, so that they can both get on more TV. The mother has almost 40 TV appearances. She wants to go on more TV. The daughter is now working with the father as a laborer in a landscaping company. She's the daughter of a doctor, a white girl in South Carolina with red hair, and she's chopping down trees. Didn't go to college. What's she gonna do? What the hell is that girl's life gonna be unless she gets married to some guy and he has a lot of money and she doesn't have to work anymore and become a mom, right? Otherwise, what's gonna happen to that girl? Well, my vision of what's gonna happen to that girl is gonna go on the college speaking circuit and she's gonna speak about suicide and teen suicide in specific. You know what she said to me? She said to me, when I was in middle school, everybody was acting sad. Like it was cool to be sad.
Yep. Yep.
I just wanted to be one of the cool kids who was depressed like everybody else who was cool. And what happened was, just like they say, if you act happy, you'll get happy. If you smile, you'll be happier. Well, the same thing happened to me, but in reverse. The sadder I was, the sadder I got.
Yep.
To where I really became to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. This is what happened to this little girl who comes from a very advantaged situation. Her mom is a doctor, an MD doctor. With she quoted her as a fancy doctor because her mom makes a lot of money as a doctor. So what we're trying to do with this girl is we're trying to give her something so that she can have a meaningful life instead of just cutting down trees. I'm trying to turn her into a celebrity speaker on the topic of teen suicide. And I think it's a very important topic because, especially since there's a line in the book where she goes, when they were driving me off to the mental institution, I thought it was going to be like summer camp. I thought it was just going to be us girls and we would talk and have fun. But it wasn't like summer camp. It was like prison. And on one side of the wall, like there was a nurse's station in the middle, and on one side of the nurse's station with a locked door. And on one side of the locked door was her and all the girls who had suicidal thoughts or had attempted suicide. And you know what was on the other side? Boys and girls who had either attempted to kill somebody or had killed people.
Jeez.
And she got the cure because one of the boys jumped over the nurse's station with a knife and tried to kill the girls in the suicidal girls section. And they all ran and scattered and were huddling in one room together because that's what girls do. And luckily, some male nurses tackled this kid with the knife before he could hurt anybody. But she said at that moment, that's when she got the cure, because nothing will make you appreciate your life more than when somebody else is trying to take it away.
Yep. Wow, man. I had done a lot of suicide in my family, man. And as a kid, trying to figure out and work through that, and trying to understand why somebody would do that, from my grandmother to my sister's boyfriend and my sister's boyfriend father, and then my stepfather's dad. Like, as a kid, I was always trying to figure this stuff out. Like, why? And, that shaped me, who I am today, of why I go out to try to build people and help people, Clint. So let me ask you a question. So when you have this creative juice in you, right? You're creative. When you go through phases, if you do it all, which I have a feeling you do, where the creativity or the creative juices are just not flowing, what do you do to get out of that? And I have a feeling I know the answer to this because you have multiple homes and you move around a little bit. But what do you do to get the creative juices flowing again?
Well, look, I really believe that there's several different kinds of books. I'm a writer. Okay, so maybe this applies to painters, photographers. I really do think it applies to all different kinds of people and all different disciplines of art. So I think the first most important book that everyone should try to write, and the first most important painting or video or story or whatever you're doing, is the book that is your life's work masterpiece. For me, that's this book here, Wisdom of the Men. I put my whole life into this book. This is everything that was meaningful to me in my life is in this book. Everything that taught me something. This is all about how I went from taxi driver to working with international superstars and 5 presidents of the United States. Okay, that's the essence of Clint Arthur.
That's what.
You ask anybody.
That answers the question. What are you made of? Right? That book.
This is what I'm made of, 100%. Okay, but this is creativity. This is pure creativity. I walked into a hotel suite in Venice, Italy, with nothing except an outline, and I walked out 10 days later with this book. Okay, so that's me in that book. Now, and everything that has made me who I am. But I find that there are two main kinds of works that a creative person should do. The first kind, actually, there's three main kinds of works that a creative person should do. The most important one is your life's work masterpiece. And I was afraid to write this book. It took me 7 years to get up to the point where I could go into that room and write it in 10 days. The first 5 years, I was just intimidated by it because I knew it was everything about me and I wanted it to be awesome. I wanted it to be something I could be proud of forever. And that's not easy to do. But that's the book that a person needs to be able to write. There's a second kind of book, and that is a book of something that is passionately interesting to you. For example, I quit writing 2 times. The first time I quit writing was after college. I wrote my novel. I sent it to my creative writing teacher in college and never heard from the guy. And I was like, well, goddamn, guy, I was his student. I got an A in his class. I sent him my novel. He never responds. Why am I doing this? And I quit writing for like 6 years. Then I got into Hollywood. I wanted to be a movie star. See, I went home to get together with my parents. They had always been arguing my whole life. But this time it was the biggest argument of all time. And my dad storms out of the house and slams the door. And I'm sitting on the couch with my mom. I'm thinking, wow, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Mom, the way he resents you all these years, have you been cheating on Dad? And I'm thinking, where did that idea even come from? I never even thought that before. And then I'm thinking, holy cow, how did I get to be so rude to say something like that to my mom? And then I'm thinking, how come she's not answering the question? And then she goes, he's not your real father. Your real father was a doctor at the fertility clinic we went to for 6 years trying to have you, and you look just like that guy. Say what? I mean, you have no idea how much of your identity is tied up in who you think your parents are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most basic thing. So now, not only didn't I know who I was anymore, I sure as heck didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up anymore. And I call up the investment bank on the 87th floor of #1 World Trade Center. Mr. Vice President of the investment bank, I decided I don't want to be an investment banker anymore after all. And what did I do? Naturally, I run off to Hollywood and start writing screenplays and wanting to be a movie star like Spike Lee. And that really got me out of my first quitting of writing. I started writing screenplays and books. I wrote 30 screenplays and 10 books, and that made me a very special person in Hollywood. It made me the driver of yellow cab number 6087. For many years, I drove a yellow cab in Los Angeles, despite my Wharton Business School degree. I went from being a guy who was going to be an investment banker to being a guy who was making $500 a week to survive and living on a little tiny boat because that was the cheapest way to live. And then it came to be New Year's Eve 1999, New Year's Eve of the millennium. And I wasn't trying to get Y2K cash out of an ATM because I was making cash driving yellow cab 6087. And in the backseat of my cab were these two guys who were MBA interns at Goldman Sachs. And I'm listening to their conversation. Hey man, did you hear about Mr. Carrera? They made him the last partner right before the Goldman IPO and he cashed out $1 gazillion. And I'm like, are you talking about Chris Carrera? How do you know Mr. Carrera? Chris Carrera was a freaking pledge in my fraternity.
Wow.
When I was a pledge master, I used to make those little punks dance around the house in their living room with their tighty whities on top of their heads. And now he made $1 gazillion and I'm making $513 on New Year's Eve of the millennium. And that night was the second night that I quit writing. I said, it is not worth throwing my life away on a dream that's never going to happen. After 13 freaking years, it would have happened by now. These guys are all getting rich, millionaires, billionaires on Wall Street like I should have been. I got to stop. And I quit writing again for the second time. And that lasted 8 years while all I did was try to make money and try to have a normal life. That's all I wanted to do, was to have a normal life. And I started selling gourmet food. And once I started making money, I met a beautiful, amazing, smart, loving woman who loved me for me. She was making more money than me working in Hollywood, but she loved me for me, luckily. And together we've built an amazing life together.
Where'd you guys
And
meet?
I saw her crossing a parking lot and I followed her into a store. You know, the 3-second rule of the selection community. I had never used that before, but that's exactly what happened. And you know, they say it's such an interesting twist. They say behind every great man is a great woman. Well, I think it's the great woman who you connect with, who inspires you to become the great man. Like I had never used the 3-second rule before because I was never inspired, but I saw her and I was like, I got to have that. And boom, I just made that happen. And, you know, we've been together more than 20 years. I met her on February 10, 2001. We've been married 20 years in November. So, you know, here we are. Now we live in 2 giant mansions in Acapulco. We rent them out either for guests, for vacations, or we do a lot of seminars. We've done almost 30 seminars down here at our villas. They're small. They're like between 14 and 20 people, but people pay me a lot of money because of who I am, because I've figured out, see, to Hollywood, people ask me, do you regret driving a cab for 13 years? And I say, no, because it taught me the most important thing in business. And they don't teach it at the Wharton Business School. I know because I graduated and wrote the book, What They Teach You at the Wharton Business School. They don't teach it at Harvard Business School. I've spoken at the Harvard Business School at events sponsored by the Entrepreneurship Club of Harvard Business School. And I asked the president of that club, do they teach what I teach at Harvard? No, they don't. They don't teach it at USC Business School. I spoke there when my daughter was a junior in the college there at studying cinema and screenwriting at USC Business School, and I paid for it. And I asked the professor of that class, do they teach this at USC? And you would think if they would teach it anywhere, they would teach it in a Hollywood business school, but they don't. And the most important thing in business is who you are is more important than what you actually do. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that I'm the greatest Shakespearean actor of all time. When I was a cab driver, if I went up on an audition against anybody who was anybody, I mean, Nicolas Cage or Tommy Lee Jones or Tom Cruise or anybody who was anybody, who's going to get the role? Me or Tom Cruise? Obviously. Even though I'm the best actor, even though I'm a better actor than Tom Cruise, for argument's sake, obviously. Because Tom Cruise is him. And the first thing they ask you, there's 2 rules, right? In real estate, it's location, location, location. In everything else, it's who. In everything else, it's who. Went to see a great movie last night. It was amazing. So action-packed and fun. Really, who was in it?
Right.
That's the first question. I'm going to a seminar. Really? Whose seminar? Unless the answer is Tony Robbins, then it's like, whatever.
Right.
Right. But people come to my seminars, people like advanced marketing people. If you're an author, a speaker, a coach, an expert of any kind, if you're advanced and you know anything about marketing, you know who I am. And if you come to my seminar in Acapulco called Impact, Influence, and Income Mastery in Paradise, you're going to pay a lot of money. And that's what I do. And I make 7 figures a year. I'm a top 1% money earner in the National Speakers Association because I have learned the most important lesson in business. And I learned it from being a taxi driver for 13 years in Hollywood. I had to learn it the hard way. But when I went on the Today Show and Brooke Shields interviewed me on the Today Show, they could have hired a lot of other people to interview Clint Arthur on the Today Show. They could have hired 1 million Columbia Journalism School graduates to interview me on the Today Show, but they hired her. Why? Because she is Brooke Shields. And they need somebody when they got a nobody like me. Look, I say I'm a nobody. Do you think Tony Robbins is famous?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay, well, I could show you video after video after video of Tony Robbins, of people I'm asking, do you think Tony Robbins is famous? And they say, Tony who? And I could show it to you on my computer because I'm using my phone for this interview, and I'm going to just bring up one of them because I can, because people don't believe that Tony Robbins is not famous. But here you go. Let's watch this one. Hey, what do you think of Tony Robbins? You know who he is?
I'm gonna take the later train and
No. Who the fuck's that guy?
No, really. Do you know who he is? You don't know who he is? I can show you many videos like that. Many, many videos. Because that's why Tony Robbins' TV show, Breakthrough with Tony Robbins, had 6 episodes on NBC and then it was off the air. Whereas Joel Osteen is on NBC New York every Sunday morning at 9:30 because Joel Osteen is famous. And that's how he makes $31.5 million every week, because his show is on hundreds of TV stations all around the world because he's famous.
So, Clint, do you think that people have to have it to become famous? Do you think that it's part luck and part virality? Do you think it's
That's a
part
great question.
structured architect? You know, like architected. Like what's the deal?
It's a great question because people think you have to be special to be famous. Okay. To be famous, you do. But I'm not talking about being famous. I'm not famous. I told you I'm nobody. I told you Tony Robbins is nobody. If Tony Robbins is nobody and he can build what he's built, and I estimate that just his one seminar, Date with Destiny, rakes in 10% of the entire self-help industry box office. Okay? You need to understand that all of celebrity is manufactured. Let's talk about, for example, do you remember the Dos Equis beer commercials? The most interesting man in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yep.
Okay. Now, he is famous. He's actually famous. Like, everybody in America remembers the most interesting man in the world from the Dos Equis beer commercials. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay, that is the purest example of manufacturing fame. And what I love about this example is that you know that he didn't get famous for being good. He didn't get famous for being smart. He didn't get famous for being a great actor or even having an important message. He got famous because Dos Equis beer put his commercials and billboards all around the world. That's why he got famous. That's the purest example of how to manufacture fame. Fame means that people know you. That's all it means. That's all it means, is that people know you. This is why politicians get famous. They go on the news. They go on the news all the time. People on the news ask them, what's your opinion of this? What's your opinion of that? And when they go on the news all the time, that's how you get famous. Well, with the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world, he didn't go on the news. He was on magazine advertisements. He was on billboards. He was on commercials, radio commercials. They started memeing him. He was at one time the most memed person in the world.
Yep.
And that's why I hired him for one of my events. I hired him because people recognized his face. See? And there's two kinds of different celebrities as far as I'm concerned. There's people who are recognized by their face. And then the other kind of celebrity is people who, when you read the caption, then you know who they are. And the most interesting man in the world, here you go. Let's see if I can get this to come up. Here's me and the most interesting man in the world at one of my conferences.
There he is.
Right? And you know that it's him, but you don't know anything about him. He's a very interesting guy in his real personal life. In his real life.
I don't know.
Jonathan Goldsmith. Jonathan Goldsmith is his name. I mean, I called up the agent. You know, I knew this guy who like booked celebrities for corporate events. I met him at a mastermind. And I said, hey man, I'm looking for a celebrity for my event at the Harvard Faculty Club. And I'm looking for a recognizable face. And he goes, I got the perfect guy for you. And I go, who's that? And he goes, Jonathan Goldsmith. And I'm like, who is Jonathan Goldsmith? He goes, he's the actor who portrays the most interesting man in the world on the Dos Equis beer commercials. And he costs a fortune of money. He gives me the number. And I'm like, wow. And I talked it over with my wife. And, you know, like compared to other celebrities.
How much? How much? We can't
I'm
have.
not allowed to say, but it wasn't quite six figures. Okay.
Okay.
It wasn't quite six figures, but
Okay.
it was close.
Okay.
And I paid him that money and it was worth it because when you have a celebrity like that, everything becomes exciting. And when you have celebrities, like to me, the best way to be somebody special is to hang out with special people.
Well, that's why. Well, that's why like people like Grant Cardone and all that when they have their events, they bring these celebrities in and other business people, and then it gives them altitude, right?
It does.
Because they just get pulled up by them.
Hey, I love Grant Cardone. You know, here's me and Grant Cardone. We were both speakers at a conference together. Okay, and I love Grant, and I think the world of him. However, do you think Grant Cardone is famous?
No. He just has very good targeting. What do you call it? Retargeting capabilities on social, and
he's a genius. He's got a huge digital media marketing department that gets his message out to people like you and me who are his target market. But just the way I showed you a video of somebody not knowing Tony Robbins, I could show you another video of 30 financial advisors at the Harvard Club of New York City, and they have no idea who Grant Cardone is because they're not in his target market. And that's what this whole thing is all about. You know, it's like, you know, how do you become a special person? I always wanted to be special. And what I've realized is, if you're trying to be special to everybody like Kim Kardashian is, or like George Clooney is, or like Oprah, good luck. Because first of all, those people have been doing it for 40 years. Kim Kardashian has been doing it for probably 25. And Kim Kardashian had some advantages. Her father was O.J. Simpson's lawyer. They've been living in the Hollywood swirl for a long time. She was Paris Hilton's assistant. She had advantages.
proximity.
But I don't take anything away from her. I don't take anything away. She's a genius, and she did, you know, she went and did whatever it took to make it happen, you know, and she's paid her dues for what she's got. But you notice, you know, she's still making it happen and working hard. And that's one of the things that rich people I've found do is rich people work hard. But you know, what I have found is if you think you're ever going to be Kim or George or Oprah, you're kidding yourself, because that's, in addition to decades of hard work, that takes a certain amount of luck to make that happen. Something's got to happen lucky. You got to get some huge lucky break. And on top of that, when you get your lucky break, you got to be smart enough to get out of your own damn way and resist the temptation to say no and instead show up. Just say yes and show up. That's a big motto of mine. If you want to take anything away from this interview, listener, write that down on a whole page. Just say yes and show up and figure out how to do it, because breaks come along. And when the break comes along, it takes you way out of your comfort zone. When I was on the Today Show with Brooke Shields, she goes, you talk a lot about being comfortable outside of your comfort zone. I said, yeah, life begins where your comfort zone ends.
So Clint, question for you though. For you, what was your break that came that you said yes to and you showed up? What's that one thing?
I would have to say I was with one of my clients from my TV publicity class, Celebrity Launchpad. And after Celebrity Launchpads, a couple people ascend into my higher level coaching program because they want extra help. And this guy, Tim Johnson, wanted extra help. So he pays the money, and I go with him to coach him in studio for a little national TV show that my friend was producing. And it was my birthday. So he and I both went on this national TV show. And then that was a great day. Then we went and played golf. We did a golf clinic. That was great. And then he takes me out to dinner because it's my birthday. And this guy poured $400 worth of tequila down our throats that night. And that's not the reason I quit drinking, but I did quit drinking shortly after that. But that night, while I'm like totally rocked on tequila, he goes, dude, you got to apply to be Dan Kennedy's Information Marketer of the Year. And I'm like, I don't have a chance of winning that competition. I'm not in his mastermind. I spoke to this other guy. I asked him, his best friend was an Information Marketer of the Year. And I asked him, how can I win? And he said, you can't possibly win, Clint, because you're not in the mastermind. And Tim Johnson said, you got to do it anyway, man. You just got to do it. You just got to do it. You deserve it. You got to do it. So drunk, I go up to my room and I write a 1-page application where I put down on the application, it said, the question was, why should you be the Information Marketer of the Year? That was the whole question. That's how you apply. And I wrote down all the Dan Kennedy products that I had bought, which wasn't many. I had attended some of his seminars and I bought a few of his information products. But then I wrote down all of his disciples who I had studied with and the seminars I'd gone to with them and the products of theirs that I bought. And then at the bottom, I wrote, these are my numbers. And the first year I sold $50,000 worth of stuff. The first year I sold $9,000 worth of information products. The second year I sold $52,000 worth of information products. This was the third year and I sold over $400,000 worth of information products. And that was my application. And I sent it in, and I know because I have a guy who became my friend. He was an insider in the organization. And they wanted to pick this girl who had written a book with Dan Kennedy and who was like politically correct, one of their friends. And the guy who was on my side, he goes, hey, look, I know you all like her, but look at Clint's numbers. Look at Clint's numbers. And that's what got me to win Dan Kennedy's Info Marketer of the Year. And you know, I thought that was the big break that was going to send me on easy street. But the real break was, okay, when I won that, my real break was realizing that winning the award is not the end. It was just the beginning. It was just another piece of great marketing. It gave me a lot of prominence and distinction in the industry, but it was still just a piece of an overall marketing thing. And when you read Wisdom of the Men, you'll learn all about the 5 elements of how do you position yourself as somebody special in the eyes of clients and prospects to where they're going to want to pay you many thousands of dollars to work with you. I call it celebrity entrepreneurship. How do you be not a celebrity, but a celebrity entrepreneur, an entrepreneur who uses celebrity marketing techniques, the same techniques as Kim and George and Oprah, the same exact ones. And when you use those techniques, you come off like them. Even though I'm nobody, I seem like I'm somebody. And it's not a lie. It's just that I haven't been doing it as long as them. I haven't been doing it as long as Tony Robbins. 30 years from now, people will think of me the way they think of Tony Robbins because I will continue to keep doing this stuff. And that's how you become somebody very special enough to make lots of money. And awards, winning awards is part of it. And you know, what was my big break? My big break was I got up the guts, the courage. I found the courage in a bottle of tequila to apply to be Dan Kennedy's Information Marketer of the Year. That was the break.
Yo, I'm taking a lot of this stuff I know, but I'm being reminded, and there's some new things that I possibly didn't know made that big a difference. One of the things that just rekindled some things was, you know, there's a game being played by all that are known, and if you just need to figure out the rules of the game and play it, but you also have to decide to be playing the game and stop hating on people for playing the game. Because you get a lot of people saying, well, they bought access to this, they bought access to this. You got to pay to play, you got to pay for proximity. You know, and if you're not going to play it, stop complaining.
Amen, man. There's a lot of people. Look, it all comes down to fear. If you're afraid that you're going to fail, even if you pay, then you're not going to pay. I remember when I wrote, look, I told you I quit writing the second time. And for 8 years, I didn't write anything. And then I went to a men's self-help campfire, and I'm there and I'm looking at the stars, and I look across the campfire and I see the shaman pointing at me. You don't know it yet, but you're already dead. What are you talking about, man? I'm the most successful freaking guy on this team. 8 years ago, I was a cab driver. Now I'm a millionaire. I was living on a little boat. Now I live in a mansion. You're already dead. You just don't know it. And I didn't know what this guy was talking about, but I couldn't get it out of my mind for months. I would wake up in the middle of a sound sleep. I'm already dead. What does he mean? And it comes to be New Year's Day of 2009. I wake up and I ask myself a question inspired by the shaman. I go, I think I'm alive. I don't think I'm dead. But what if I was going to die at the end of this year? What if this was going to be the last year of my life? What would I want to accomplish? And I was blown away, surprised that the first thing I wrote down on my list of things I needed to accomplish if I was going to die was I need to write my book about what made me successful, with things I learned at the Wharton Business School that helped me to be a successful entrepreneur once I stopped trying to be a writer and a movie star. And I hadn't written in 8 years, and I wrote that book in 8 days. And I self-published it with Amazon. And I waited for the sales to roll in. And all 8 of those sales rolled in 2009. It gets to be November 2009. I'm looking at the book, collecting dust on a shelf. And I say to myself, I cannot just let this book collect dust. I go to a seminar that weekend. I meet Jack Canfield. I said, Jack, how do you sell 500 million Chicken Soup for the Soul books? And he goes, you got to be kind of famous. People don't buy books from nobodies. You got to go on TV and newspapers and radio. There was no podcast in those days. This was 2009. So I'm looking at the book and I said to myself, if what they teach you at the Wharton Business School is not good enough, then nothing is ever going to be good enough. See, remember I told you, you got to write the book that is your life's work. At that point in my life, that was the most important thing I had done, right? Was I had figured out how to make money. I had figured out how to go from being a cab driver to a successful businessman using what I learned at the Wharton Business School. And I wanted my little 13-year-old daughter to have the benefit of that wisdom. So I wrote that book. That's one kind of book. Now you asked, what do you do if you don't have the spark? Well, look, there's different kinds of books. The second kind of book is a book that you're super passionate about. Like, for example, in 2016, I was at a mastermind. I wake up in the middle of the night. I have this idea, The Performance Secrets of Donald Trump. There was a big bestseller called The Performance Secrets of Steve Jobs. And I was going to write a book analyzing Trump as a speaker, because the guy used to get paid $1 million per speech just to show up in an auditorium and talk to a multi-level marketing company or whatever. Yep. And I wrote that book in 2 days, and 3 weeks later, I did my first of 10 TV appearances on CNN, HLN, BBC, Sky News, all around the world. I was on TV from that one book, which I was passionate about as an idea. And then there's the third kind of book. And the third kind of book is probably the most important book for guys who have written the books that I've just talked about. And that is when you become a professional writer. If you're a professional writer, you know what you got to do? You got to get up every day and write, or you got to block off time and write. So for example, I decided over Christmas and New Year's last year, I wanted to write a novel. Why? I don't know. I'm a writer. I haven't written a novel since I wrote that one in college. I wanted to write a novel. So I took myself on a trip to Venice, Italy, and Rome. And in about 15 days, I wrote my novel. It's a spy thriller about inflation. Why? Because I'm a professional writer. And you know what? When you're a professional creator, a writer, a filmmaker, why does Woody Allen do all these movies? You know how many movies Woody Allen has made? Dozens of them. Why? Because that's what a professional filmmaker does. And you don't always feel like the passion about it every day, but you got to get up and do the work that you're here to do. Unfortunately, I'm a writer. That's what I say. Unfortunately, I'm a writer. Because it's very difficult to make money as a writer. But when I met President George H.W. Bush, I was on a sales call in a kitchen. I told you I was in gourmet food industry. And I was on a sales call at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday with my friend slash client, who was the executive chef of the Danielle Boulou French Brasserie at the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas. He was a client. All my gourmet food clients are the best chefs in the world. And he's stirring a pot of soup. And I say, Philippe, why are you doing this? It's 10 o'clock in the morning. You're the executive chef of a multi-million-dollar restaurant. Why don't you get one of your 20 sous chefs to stir this pot of soup? He goes, because I love it. This is my métier. Métier is your passion that you do for love. And for me, writing is my métier. That's what I love. I'm not even a speaker. I became a speaker because I wanted to sell more books. I forced myself, I'm an introvert. I forced myself out of my comfort zone, up on the stage, in front of people where everybody's looking at you, where you're supposed to say smart stuff. And I forced myself to become a speaker because I knew it would be helpful for my writing. Just then, George Bush walks into the kitchen. I swear to God, just like that, out of nowhere, 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, just like that, George Bush walks into the kitchen with 2 Secret Service guys. And I go to Philippe, holy shit, that's the President of the United States. And he goes, really? He was French. He had no freaking idea. I go running after George Bush, following him into the dining room of the restaurant. And I see him there just in a suit and tie, looking at the lake, admiring the beautiful restaurant. And I go up to the Secret Service guy and I go, can I get a picture with the president? And I handed my little Sony digital camera. And though this was before iPhones, but I had gone to a seminar by Mark Victor Hansen, the other author of Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Mark.
And Mark said, you always have to carry a camera with you wherever you go because you may meet somebody famous or important and you'll want to get a photo with them. And I had the camera. I paid the money to the guru. I got the advice from the guru and I was executing the guru's instructions. See? And I had the camera in my pocket and I handed it to the Secret Service guy and I go up to George Bush and I said, the Secret Service guy said we could get a photo. And he said, sure. So we take my picture with George Bush. And here it is. And I say to George Bush, sir, what's the most important thing you ever learned? He said, well, young man, that's a very big question, but I have to say.
Move it over a little bit. Move it over a little bit. There we go. There we go. Right there. I just want to make sure we saw the president.
I have to say, you have to keep doing the things you love in this life. And if you look at the president's tie, there's little parachute jumpers on the tie. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, well, that's George Bush following his preaching. Okay, what did George Bush love to do? What did he do on his 80th birthday that put him on the cover of Time magazine? He jumped out of an airplane with a parachute. That was what he loved to do in life. And I'm not talking about politics. I'm just talking about advice from an old successful guy. Do what you love doing in life. And the problem is when that's your métier. People used to ask me when I was a screenwriter trying to make it in Hollywood, you making any money? And I would say, I don't even care about the money. I just want to work. I just want to have a career. And it's true. That's all I want. I just want to have a career. But that's the problem with having a métier. When you're so passionate about what you do to make money, you'll do it for free. And that's not a winning formula for making money, doing it for free. You got to figure out how to do
that at the Wharton School, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, at the Wharton Business School, the first thing they teach you is get the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the most important thing is get the money. And what I have learned, look, I went to many seminars to try to figure out how do you make money as an author, as a speaker, as a coach? How do you do that? Because I wasn't making it at the beginning. I told you the first year I made $9,000. And for a lot of people, that's a good year as a coach. As an author, $9,000 as an author is pretty good for a year, honestly. But this not what I wanted, so I invested money with mentors, and that's another thing they asked me on the Today Show. Willie Geist goes, you wanna climb to the top of Mount Everest and get all these other great things, but how do you keep from falling off track? And I said, invest in mentors. That has been the key to me achieving so much so fast. And when you find a great mentor, suck up all the knowledge that they can give you. And that's why I got people who come to my seminars 5 times here in Acapulco to the same seminar, because it's always evolving and it's never the same twice. So I have learned a lot of stuff. I've learned how to make millions of dollars as an author, a speaker, a coach, a consultant, an advisor, an expert. And that's why people come to me, because I've got enough celebrity positioning. I'm enough of a celebrity entrepreneur so that I could get people to pay $10,000 to come to a 1-week seminar in Acapulco, which, if you think about it, is really a great deal, because it includes all room and board at the villa. I have gluten-free, sugar-free food.
That's a steal. Clint, are you kidding me? That's a steal.
It is a steal. It truly is.
Well,
And,
how can people engage with you further on that or find out more about information about that?
Go to Clint.com, Clint with 3 T's.com. Why 3 T's, Clint? Because one of my expert students was the inventor of the science of namology. What does your name mean for your life? And she calls me up one day and she goes, Clint, I wish you could add an extra T on the end of your name, because the T's always end up on top. And I said, wow, you mean like Trump? She goes, exactly like Trump. And I go, looking on GoDaddy, and I can't get Clint with 2 T's.com, but I could get Clint with 3 T's.com. So if you go to Clint with 3 T's.com, you'll see all about the different products. If you want to try me out, buy one of my information products. You could buy the recordings from my seminars. You could buy different programs that I have. Or if you want to jump in and be mentored by me and learn how to make money as an expert, whatever you do, then you can apply for mentorship. At the bottom of the page, it says apply for mentorship.
All right. Well, thank you, Clint, so much for joining us today and sharing those stories, man. I'm engulfed. I didn't even know what time it was. I'm just sitting here like, I love it, man. I appreciate you, your energy, your vibes. Awesome. I'm going to follow up with you. We'll do a follow-up call to see how we can collab together. I think there's definitely synergy here. And I just want to thank you so much for your time, Clint.
Right on, C-Roc.
Thank you guys for joining us and watching or listening. Appreciate all of your listenership. Keep coming back. Subscribe, rate us, comment. Let me know what you think. And we'll be back with the next show probably tomorrow here on Fireside at the What Are You Made Of show. Until next time, it's your boy C-Roc. Be unstoppable.